Hello everyone, welcome to the next session of this training. In this session we will be learning about background processing. What is the use of background processing? Basically what jobs we can do, how to perform the background processing, how to schedule the background jobs and monitor the background jobs. These are all what we are going to study here. As a basis consultant, all the long running programs should be executed as a background jobs in SAP system. As administrator, this is our job to schedule these background jobs as well as monitor the background jobs to make sure that jobs are completed correctly. In different situations, people may also schedule their own background jobs. However, as a basis administrator, we are fully responsible for administrating and managing this background process. Now you may think, why do we need to have background jobs? All the programs which we want to execute, we can execute in the dialog mode where you will get the result. So why do we need to have really background jobs? The reason behind that background job is, for example, you are executing a long running program which has quite a lot of steps and which needs to be executed for some time to generate these reports. So this report, if you run it in the dialog mode, for example, this will occupy the entire dialog work process till you complete or till you get the result. So that is going to be a problem. Let's say if you have 10 work process in our system, we have 10 work process. If 10 users will execute these kind of long running jobs, then the 10 work process is blocked till that job is getting completed. Okay? So in that cases, it will be quite difficult to free the dialog process in the normal scenario. So what we do is that we execute the long running jobs which cannot be executed in a short period as a background job, where you can get the result from the background job. It's quite easy to do. So based on the resource availability, this will keep executing in the background process. So how do we restrict that user is not allowed to run this long running jobs as a dialog work process? We have a system parameter which we can set what is the maximum runtime which is available for each users. If we go to our SAP system, here if you go to RZ 11, let's go to the parameter RDISP slash max underscore WP run underscore time. Okay, this is maximum work process runtime. Say display, and let me check the documents. It's a maximum work process runtime. That means one work process, that means dialog work process, what is the maximum it can execute this particular program. This parameter limits the maximum runtime of the process or the steps within the dialog process. This ensures the dialog process are not blocked by programs with long run times with hidden online operations. Okay, the maximum runtime has been expired. The program will terminate two stages. The maximum runtime, if the program is currently executed by program commands, this is two ways it can terminate. And it will also generate the short dump where you can monitor what happened. Okay, presently you can see the value is 600, that is 600 seconds, that is total, let's say 10 minutes. You can run the dialog work process. After that it will give you a timeout error. Okay, this parameter also quite important parameter, because you will find always some short terms which is related to runtime problems, and you will also get kind of issues from your consultant or the user saying that I cannot execute this program and it got terminated. Okay, that's because of these parameters. So in that kind of situation, you always important that you just does not go and check the system parameters. If you increase the system parameters, then it's going to have a wider effect in all the users. Okay, that could not be a solution in most cases, and as a basis consultant you will always have uh, pressures that I cannot execute this program. In that kind of situation, as a basis consultant you need to always suggest to the user or the consultant to execute this specific program as a background jobs. However, all the programs cannot be executed a background job. So in that cases you need to inform the consultant. They have to discuss with the ABAP programmers how they can execute this as a background process, whereas you can generate the output as a pull request or some form of another form of output request, another form of output, or generate some output in the text file or whatever it could be. The solution to change the value of dialog work process, or solution to change the maximum work process runtime, is only in case of if, let's say, all the users have problem in the standard transaction codes which should be executed in the dialog mode. Okay, this is the way we can initial benchmark you can do. Let's say if it is a standard program which should be executed in dialog mode, it's a standard transaction code which should be executed in dialog mode, but which have less selection criteria, very few selection criteria. In that cases, if it is not giving the output within the given time, then there's a problem. Then we need to really check this issue. If, let's say, if it is not a standard one, if it is a custom development, then we need to always go for execute in the background. Otherwise, we also need to check the performance of the program, or the performance tuning of the particular program, how this program is being designed, or what is the logic behind that program. That could be something wrong with that. That could be also the problem. So you need to always make a balance between these two. So in this particular section, in this particular topic, this parameter is quite important. So in these cases, we will ask them to find alternative solution execute in the background mode. Okay, let's go back. Now let's see what is background job, how it is been designed in the SAP system. You can see here the background jobs can be executed in parallel. Let's say based on the number of work process which we have, you can execute the background jobs in parallel. For example, in our ECC system, we have multiple background work process. Let's say if you go to our SAP system again, here if you go to SM50, here you can see the background jobs we have 1 2 3 4 5 background jobs. No, 5 6 7 8. The reason behind that is we set up the operation mode in our initial classes. That's the reason it's already switched to the night mode, so the background work process is increased. Otherwise we have only 3 background work process. Okay, so that's the way we can check a number of work process allocated for background jobs. Okay, let's assume in our system we have 3 background work process. So we can execute jobs in parallel to all the background work process which is available in the SAP system, in the entire SAP system. The background job, for example, one specific background job can contain multiple steps. Steps means different programs with different variants. For example, you have 4 different programs which needs to be executed to complete your business process. So how do we do that? You do not need to create 4 different background processes, or 4 different background jobs. Instead, you can create one background job where you can define different steps. That means different programs, or it can be same program with different input. Okay, this can be generated. So one specific background job can have multiple steps. Okay, this is very important. And same like that, multiple multiple background jobs can be executed simultaneously based on the background work process what you have in your SAP system. What a step can contain? A step can contain a ABAP program, possibly with variant. That means ABAP program can give you output without any selection criteria. Okay, you can run ABAP program in two different ways. When you are creating the program, you run the program, and this particular program does not have any screens, so it will generally give you the output. For example, we have this RS-Param, right? RS-Param program does not have any much selection criteria. You just run it, you got the result. Okay, and the same RS-Param can be executed by a different transaction code, which is a different program where you can have selection criteria. So this is two programs, same output run in two different ways. So the first one, you just run it, it does not have any selection criteria, it will give you the output. Second one, you need to have some input there because you have a screen in the middle. Okay, so you need to have some input there. How do we handle that one? For that, we can create something called variants. The variants can be saved in these programs so that this program can run with the variant to provide the output which you want based on the selection criteria. Okay, we will see that in the system, then we will understand quite easier later. Then we can also execute external commands. For example, you have an external command which needs to be executed. You wanted to execute some OS command. In that case, you can also execute an external command from the background job. That means from SAP, you can trigger this command. You may think, now what is the situation I want to do this one? For example, you have an SAP program, that means an ABAP program, which generates some text file. For example, this is kind of interface building. Yeah, so this program creates some text file. For example, it creates a output for employee payment. For example, it creates a text file which contains a lot of details and employees and their bank account numbers and how much money needs to be paid. So this text file is generated by an ABAP program. Then you want to execute an external program to send this particular text file to a different location or different server. For that, you will have a external command to move this file to different folders, or it can be, or you want to encrypt this particular text file using a different external program. For example, in that case, you can also run this program from inside SAP. You can execute this program, then they execute the external command, maybe an FTP command, and send to somewhere else. Okay, that is possible. So the steps can be a ABAP program, or it can be an external command, or it can be an external program. The scenario what I give is just a simple scenario for you to understand. In the real scenario, we don't generate employee payment in a text file because it's not secured. This not be the way it should be done. More secured way you can generate this file. Basically, if you see some of the bigger banks like Citibank or Standard Chartered Bank, they have their own kind of interfaces for SAP. If you make a contract with them, they will give you these programs. Then you can interface your SAP with their systems so that it can be done automatically. So the example what I give is quite a simple example so that you can understand this better. So meaning to say, using this background job, you can execute ABAP program, external command, and external programs. Then we have priority. How these programs, how these jobs should be executed. As we seen, the number of work process, the background work process we have in the SAP system is quite limited. And you may schedule more than one jobs or multiple jobs in the same time. So how SAP can define, how SAP can understand which job needs to be executed first and which job needs to be executed second. For that we have job class. We have class A, class B and class C. So class A jobs, when you are creating the jobs, class A jobs will be executed first. It will have the high priority. The medium priority is class B and the low priority is class C. So based on the criticality of the program which you are going to run, you need to define whether it's a class A job or class B job or class C job. So based on the resource available, first it will give the resources to all the class A jobs. When the resources is free, then it will give it to all the class B jobs. Then when the class B job is completed or there is no class B jobs waiting, then it will give it to class C jobs. Okay, meaning to say, let's say we have three work process. You have one class A job, one class B job and one class C jobs. It will allocate to class A first, class B second and class C third. Then it will all run simultaneously because the resources are already available. If the resources are not available, you have three class A jobs and two class B jobs. First it will give all the three background work process to the class A jobs to run all the three class A jobs. Once that is finished, it will give it to the class B jobs. Once that is finished, then it will go to the class C job. So it will, based on this classes, it will keep allocating the work process. And we have a separate catch here. And we have one more thing which needs to be remembered here. The is class A job with target server and class A jobs without target server. So what is with target server and without target server? When you schedule a job, you can specify which server it should run. Okay, we have at the moment in our system we have one application server. You can have more than one application server, right? So in that cases, each application server will have its own background work process. And you can schedule the job to be run on specific application server. Now you may think, why do I need to do that? It is possible that one application server, the processing power is more higher and the other application server processing power is more lower. You want to schedule it in a specific application server. That could be one reason. In main reason that why we specify in the specific target server is mainly in kind of interfaces. Let's say you have different application server, you have some application which is server specific, the linked program for that application needs to be run in one specific server. It cannot support it cannot support different SAP server. Whatever the reason, if you specify that particular job which needs to be run in specific target server, then the priority goes for that. And if you specify without target server, that means you do not need to put any target server. We can leave it blank, or you can also create actually a group. If you leave that blank, then the SAP system will allocate the application server based on the work process available. In that cases, that will come to the second priority. Okay, so the first priority is class A jobs with target server or target group. Second priority is class A job without target server or target group. Then the third priority goes to class B jobs with target server or target groups. Then the fourth priority goes to class B jobs without target server or target group. And the fifth priority goes to class C jobs with target server or target groups. And the sixth priority goes to class C jobs without target server or target group. So we have 6 different priorities. In general it is 3, but if you have the specific conditions, then we need to consider this. In general, what we do in a practical scenario is we don't specify target server or groups. If it is a small system, provided you do not have this target group concept, and we will leave it blank until unless you have an interface or program which demands that it needs to be run in specific application server because of that particular link or particular application which is linked, but this output is running in specific application instance. Okay, otherwise we will leave it blank so that SAP can manage it by own. How do we identify which this job is class A or class B or class C? Okay, this is again the best judgment we need to make. What is business critical? For example, system specific background jobs, we will define it as class C, because not all system specific background jobs, for example, DB specific, DB reorg, these kind of jobs which may take longer time, we will specify as class C jobs. Okay, in general you need to understand the larger number of jobs, background job should run as class C job. Okay, the class A job should be minimal. Okay, class B jobs can be little bit higher than the class A. The larger number of background jobs should be scheduled as class C jobs. Okay, that should be the case in a normal scenario. Then the performance can be far better. So the prioritization will work. Otherwise, if you schedule everything in class A jobs, then that will be a problem in a later stage. How do you manage this? Okay, so this also some customers, they, like let's say if they decentralized background job scheduling process, let's say they allow everybody to schedule background jobs, in that cases everybody believes that their job is more important, so they keep scheduling as class A jobs. In that cases, in after over a period or after 3-4 years, you have hundreds of class A jobs and you cannot prioritize anything. Okay, that should not be the case. In a perfect scenario for background job scheduling, it should be scheduled by central administrator, one specific group of people. It can be basis consultant who will schedule the jobs, so then they can prioritize this properly, so that the prioritization also have some approval steps. If it is has to be in class A, then it needs to be approved by a senior consultant or a integration manager, whoever it may be. Then the number of class A jobs, then you can reduce it. Okay, now let's have more look into what we can do with the background jobs. So we seen in the background job steps, we can have ABAP program, external command and external programs. So the first one is ABAP programs. The ABAP programs which we seen, the first type of ABAP program is without screen selection. That means we have a program that does not need to have any input from the user. Okay, that is quite easy to schedule. And the second category is with selection screen. Let's say this program have some selection screen. When you run the program, you need to input some values. So when you run it in the background, how do we handle that? How do we input in these values? That is by creating variants. So once you create this variants, that variants can be used as an input for this program. Then you can execute this a background job. Now you may think, how do I see the output? Because I need to see the output. So in that case, these programs which you are running, which gives you an output, can be generated as a spool output. We already know what is spool output. So this spool output can be generated as an output. This output also you can send to a printer. For example, you need to define a printer in normal scenarios. That means this will not be printed immediately. You can print it if you like. Otherwise, you can send this output to your email. If you specify your email ID in the system, then it automatically sends the spool request to the email which you are specifying. That is another way of getting the output. Either you can create a spool output, after that you can send to different output or the printer, or you can send to an email, and that is two way of seeing the output. Then we have external command. The external command, that it's a command or a script which you want to execute in the operating system level. The external command is basically a operating system call where you can save it under the operating system, then you can call from SAP system. However, running an external command from an SAP system, it's quite critical. It's very critical. In this case, SAP have a proper authorization concept. Who should run the external command? How we can provide authorization for external command? It's already defined, which is very well explained in our training course for security. So you have to be very careful when you are providing authorization for external command to run external programs in the operating system, because you can send out any information to different systems or different places. So it's quite critical. Then we come to external programs. External program also an operating system command where you can execute a program from the operating system. However, the external program also very critical, that we need to have proper authorization concept if you allow any user to execute an external program from the SAP system. Okay, you should have already have a question in your mind, how can we start this particular background jobs? So we have two main classification in starting of background job, starting criteria. First one is at a particular time, that is called time dependent background jobs, meaning to say you can specify the particular job should be started in this date on in this time. Okay, on that time, on that date, it will start the particular background jobs. So it is called time dependent background jobs. However, we also have option that you want to trigger a background job right now. You have an option to say start immediately. Then it will start immediately as soon as you save the particular job. That also possible. That also called time dependent background job. However, you will start immediately. You can also schedule after some time or after a period in a specific date and specific time. That is called time dependent background job. The next one is event dependent background jobs. The event dependent background job is basically triggered based on some events it happens. For example, you have a program, the particular program does some event in an SAP system. Based on the event, you schedule a background job or you trigger a background job. Meaning to say the background job will be created in the system. However, based on the resource available, the job will be executed. For example, you have a workflow. Okay, there is something called workflow in SAP. The workflow is basically what you do. You will create some request. For example, okay, let's give a business example. For example, you want to approve a purchase order. Okay, you can configure in the SAP system. You can trigger a workflow, send it to an approver. The approver will say, okay, this is approved inside the SAP system. This is called workflow. So like this, you will have some workflow for some specific task. The workflow is triggered. So based on the workflow is triggered, you want to configure the background job saying that if the workflow is triggered, I want to schedule this job. Okay, that's an event. So based on the event, okay, this is a simple example to understand what is an event. There could be different scenarios which yeah, background jobs or event can be triggered. So based on the event, you can trigger these jobs, or you can create an event and you can trigger the event from the SAP program, from the ABAP program. So based on the event, you can schedule a background job. So once you schedule a background job based on the resource what is available, then it will execute the program or execute the particular background job. Okay, this is The selection, this is the starting criteria. We have time dependent and event dependent. Then how do we schedule a background job? Okay, what are all the steps involved in scheduling the background jobs? The first one, what you can see, the procedure to schedule a background job. Okay, the transaction code to schedule the background job is SM36, and we also have an SM36 wizard. Okay, so to schedule a background job, first what we need to give, we need to provide general job specification. That means the job name, what class it is, and if is it going to be executed in the specific uh, server, these kind of informations. Okay, the second one is, once you specify the general job specification, then you define the steps. Okay, in the steps, what you will do, you will define what program, ABAP program need to be run, or what external command or what external program need to be executed in the job which you are creating. Okay, that is the step. That is step number 2. Then you go to the step number 3. In step number 3, you will define the conditions. We already know what is the conditions. That means starting criteria. In the starting criteria, let's say time dependent, then you will specify what time it needs to be triggered. Okay, and what date it needs to be triggered. And you will also specify this is a periodic job, what frequency you want to execute. These are all defined in start condition. Okay, so you have job specification, that's a general information about this job. Then you have job steps, that means steps which needs to be executed, how many program needs to be executed, or what all the commands needs to be executed. Then you will specify the starting condition, on what condition you want to start, whether it is event based or it is time based. If it is time based, what time you want to execute, on what date you want to execute, these kind of informations. And how are we going to schedule these jobs? We have two transactions, SM36 where to schedule the job, and we also have another one transaction called SM36 wizard. The wizard will help you to go through these steps more easier than the SM36. SM36 you need to go and manually select these conditions. We need to select the steps. The wizard is quite easy. You can simply click continue, then it will take you through the steps more easier. So in the general specification, what you will specify is this job name. Yeah, that is basically a name for the specific job, and you will specify the job class. We already know what is job class, and we will also specify the target server if it is necessary. Then we will go to the steps. We will define the programs and the start condition in the later stage, the third stage. As you can see, we have two different transaction code, but there is no much difference. The result is same. However, in SM36 you need to select the programs everything manually. However, in wizard is quite easy. Let's say if you don't want to select, or if it is you are new to job scheduling, or you are informing somebody about this job, then they can use this wizard. Quite easy. However, the result is same. Next, let's see how do we monitor background jobs. The background jobs are monitored in the transaction code SM37. So when you go to SM37, you will come to this screen, whereas you can find quite a lot of information about the background jobs. The first one is the spool. The spool list, which we already know. Let's say when you schedule any job, if the job is going to create a spool, then you can select that particular job and say spool, then it will display the spool of the particular job. Okay, the spool output of the particular job. Then we have job log. This is different than the spool list. So this is two things. The spool list is an output of the program. The job log is the steps, how the program being executed. When we go to the system, we will see that in detail. Now I'm trying to explain this concept very clear before we get into the system. So the spool list is the output of the specific program, what it needs to give you as an output. The job log is the steps or how the program is being executed. The log of the program. This is not an output. Okay, how the program is being executed. Then we have steps. The steps explains what are all the steps, or the steps give you the detail of the steps which is executed in this particular job. Okay, and we can also change the layout. Let's say now this is the layout of this particular job. If you like to change, you can change it here. Okay, this is change layout. Here you can see selection criteria. Okay, we will come to this again. Here we can see the selection criteria. Selection criteria means the status of the job. The status of the job, we have different status. We have scheduled, released, ready, active, finished, and cancelled. This is the status of the job. As well as we can see event control jobs, or event meaning event triggered jobs, or ABAP program. That also we can select in SM37. So what did we select? That is the selection criteria. We will see how we can select in the system later. This will also give you the display. This will also give you what is the selection criteria for displaying this particular screen. Selection criteria, then it will give you the status. We have different status. It will give you the status whether it is completed or error and all any other status, and it will also give you the job details. This is very important. When this is started and when it is completed. There is right now here it's not there. If you go to the change layout, you can add this in your layout when it is completed, so that you can see how much time it is took to complete, or when it started and when it's entered. It will have the date as well as the time. Okay, this is how we going to monitor the jobs using the transaction code SM37. Now let's have a look into the status of background job. This is very important to understand how the status is being changed. So the first status is scheduled, meaning to say when you create a job, it can have all the status: scheduled, released, ready, active, finished, and cancelled. Okay, first one is scheduled. Scheduled means you created a job, however you did not define the start condition. Okay, we have job creation and we have three steps. If you go back to our previous presentations, you can see we have three steps. We created the job definition, we defined the steps, but you did not define the job condition. In that state, it will be scheduled. Okay, you need to define the job condition. In that stage, it will be in the stage called scheduled. Then once you define the job condition, then you will release the job. If the status is released, means the job has been completely defined, including the starting condition. However, a job cannot be released without the starting condition. However, releasing of this particular job should be done by the administrator or the user who has this authorization. And these stages can be controlled by authorization. Who can release the job can be controlled by an authorizations. Generally, administrator can release the jobs, or the user can release their own jobs. If they want to release different users jobs, then you need to have authorization for that. These are all controlled by authorizations. Okay, so when it's scheduling, that means when it is scheduled means it is scheduled, but it does not have a starting condition. When it is released means it has a starting conditions. All the definition is completed properly. Then the job come to the status ready. That means the starting condition of the released job is fulfilled. Okay, it is the starting condition which we define is fulfilled. Let's assume you define one date and time to start this particular job. That is, now this is the moment which is that specific date and time has come already. That time the job will go from release to ready. The job scheduler has planned the job in the waiting queue. That's what it means. So if you see a job which is in ready condition, that means this particular job is waiting for work process. Okay, that is ready status. Then we will come to the status active. we come to the status active. So once the ready job found a work process which can be allocated to the particular work process or particular job, then the job will come to active status. That means the presently the job is running. In this case, you cannot delete or you cannot change this job. However, you can delete the job. You can go to the job and you can cancel the active job. We will come to that later. In this stage, it is presently active. So once the job is successfully completed, then it will go to the status finished. So if suppose you go by debugging method and cancel this job, then it goes to the status called cancelled. There is two possibility of cancelling the job. Let's say you go to SM37 and you manually go and cancel this job, or this job is cancelled because of some particular error. These errors also you can see in the SM37 when you go to the job log. When we see in our previous presentation, if you go to the job log, that will give you the error, what is the actual error of this cancellation. Okay. So these are all the status of a specific job: scheduled, released, ready, active, finished, and cancelled. Scheduled means it is scheduled but there is no starting condition. Released means it is released, all the starting condition is fulfilled, all the starting condition is defined but it's released. Then ready means the specific conditions it's already fulfilled, that means the time has come or the event is triggered, then it's ready, it's waiting for work process. When it is active means the job is running. If it is finished, that means finished successfully. Cancelled means it is cancelled because of some issues, or it is cancelled because it was terminated by the user. Now if you see, when the job is on scheduled mode or in released mode, there is a possibility to change the job. Okay, when it is ready you cannot change. When it's scheduled means you schedule the job but you did not define the starting condition, still you can go back and change the steps. Okay, that's what it means. When it is released also, but it is not gone to ready, but it's release mode, that time also if you still wanted to change the starting condition or you wanted to change the steps, you can still change the steps or still change the job I mean. So these two status you can still change the job. If in case it is finished, so you want to create a new job but it's the same condition or with the same steps. Okay, in that case you can copy the finished jobs and you can create a new one and it will come to the released stage. When you copy a job, the finished job, when you say copy, give a new name and it will go to the release stage. When you save it, the status of the particular job will be scheduled. Then you go back and modify this particular job which you copied and you specify the starting condition, it will come to the release stage. If the job is on release stage, also you can copy and make a new job based on what you have selected. But in another stages you cannot do that. In cancelled also you can do that. Okay. In the final stage, once it is finished or cancelled, then only the job log and the spool list can be created, or we can say it's visible for you. Okay, or it can be generated properly, which you can analyze it. The analysis, mainly we have two analyses: the job log as well as the spool log, as well as spool list, which is generated by the program. Okay, with this we are coming to the end of this session. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you in the next session. Bye bye.